Angela Davis, woke professor, former 10 most wanted fugitive, and Mayflower descendant? Seriously! Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is another declaration of truth from your host, Terry A. Hurlbut. Last week, a former 10 most wanted fugitive learned that she descended from Pilgrim and Patriotic stock. This did not make her happy, and in fact she barely kept her composure, on national television at that. 50 years ago, Angela Davis was a heroine of what she and others hoped would be the American Communist Revolution. She even traveled to communist Eastern Europe and rubbed shoulders with the first woman in space and with prominent servants of the Soviet and other Warsaw Pact governments. More recently, she always imagined that her ancestors had nothing in common with America's first white settlers. In keeping with that, she proposed, for example, that all whites owe reparations to all blacks because whites invented slavery. Now she finds that she must number some of her bitterest racial enemies among her own ancestors. I'm going to review her history for you, much of which I lived to watch on what were then the big three TV networks. But first, I do want to shout out to the prime sponsor of this channel, which is Conservative News and Views. Link in the description. And be sure to check out the awesome CNAV Store. Scroll down near the bottom for that link. Lots of great merchandise there, especially this t-shirt that I have chosen for today, which reads, "Thanks for the free trial of communism, but I'd like to cancel." Which is directly relevant today because Angela Davis was always, is now, and will be while she breathes a communist, unless she repents of that and many other sins. One more thing. If you like what you're about to hear, you can like this video. You can also click the bell icon to get a notice every time I come out with a new one. In fact, do you see the new icon, the heart shape with the US dollar sign in it? That's the super thanks icon. If you really want to keep these videos coming, click that and leave me a tip. Any currency will do, so long as it's legal tender. Okay, first, the $1,024,000 question. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot is Angela Davis. Angela Yvonne Davis was born in 1944 in Birmingham, Alabama. Her life was unremarkable except for involvement in leftist politics at an early age. But what really formed her political identity was the education she got at Brandeis University. There she met Herbert Marcuse, a member of the Marxist Frankfurt School, and a key man in fleshing out the critical theory of Antonio Gramsci. Moreover, she met him at a rally in support of communism during the Cuban Missile Crisis. All this goes to Nikita S. Khrushchev's empire-building activities, of course. The Communist Party involved itself often with groups who, at the time, were fighting racial segregation. The irony of Angela Davis calling for a posture tantamount to race warfare today must be utterly lost on her. I remember her first as yet another figure in the student demonstrations of the late 60s and early 70s. She wasn't a student then, but a professor of political science, naturally. Then in August of 1970, she appeared on television in the last place I ever expected. Do any of you remember a TV show from the 60s and 70s called The FBI? Hey, you've heard me mention it before. The Ford Motor Company presents The FBI, a Quinn Martin production starring Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. Well, Ephraim Zimbalist Jr., better known as Inspector Louis Erskine, had recently begun profiling persons on the list of the 10 most wanted fugitives. And on this occasion, he profiled Angela Davis. The charge, interstate flight to avoid prosecution for murder and kidnapping. She seems to have furnished the guns that Jonathan Jackson used to take over a courtroom in Marin County, California, rescue and arm 2 blacks who were on trial in that courtroom, and take Judge Harold Haley, the prosecutor, and 3 female jurors hostage. The group got into a van to drive away from the courthouse. Then, one of the 2 defendants, James McClain, broke discipline. He fired at the police, and the police returned fire. Judge Haley took a shotgun blast from either Jackson or one of the defendants, and a bullet from the outside. Now, either wound would have been fatal. Jackson and both defendants died in the firefight. The prosecutor and 1 juror were wounded. California authorities charged Angela Davis with first-degree murder, aggravated kidnap, and conspiracy. In California, then as now, anyone contributing in any way to a crime is just as guilty as those who pull triggers, handle burglars' tools, whatever. She skipped the state, and her face showed up on a wanted poster, to which I've left a link in the description, and featured on one of Ephraim Zimbalist Jr.'s 10 most wanted fugitive profiles, as I said. 2 months later, October, the FBI found her at a Howard Johnson's in New York City. Authorities returned her to California, where she faced trial, ultimately in Santa Clara County, after a change of venue. An all-white jury acquitted her of all 3 counts. In so doing, the jury nullified the involvement rule. She furnished the guns, but no one proved that she did so on specific assignment from Jackson. Now, I would guess that the two other facts cast reasonable doubt on her guilt, at least in the minds of those Santa Clara jurors. First, Judge Haley took 2 wounds, not 1, and the second wound was from a would-be rescuer, not a captor. Either wound would have been fatal, so the question became, which wound came first? And no one could establish that, because the surviving witnesses would scarcely be ballistics experts. Second, Jackson and both the men he tried to rescue all died in the gun battle. So the chief malefactor and the 2 most likely to benefit from this act all died. The jury might have called that square, but probably the most likely explanation is that the jury blamed Jackson and only Jackson, not Davis. Jackson was dead, and Angela Davis wasn't even there. Let's give you an aside. When I was a resident in pathology at Vanderbilt University-affiliated hospitals, I once answered an ad from the law school to take part first as an actor playing the Darrow County Medical Examiner, then as a juror in their trial advocacy course by the National Institute for Trial Advocacy. In that mock case where I served as a juror, a man stood trial for robbery and murder, but he wasn't the guy who pulled the trigger. He was driving the getaway car. The state of Nita charged this defendant with first-degree murder, but did not charge the trigger man. My fellow mock jurors just flat out revolted against what they saw as a twist of justice. That was too much for them. Now, maybe those real-life Santa Clara jurors in Angela Davis' case felt that since Jonathan Jackson, James McClain, and that other man were dead, charging an admittedly radical college professor something these wackos did and got killed doing it was a pile-on of which they wanted no part. I want to share something else with you, a really ironic twist most people never heard about. But first, I want to shout out to a sponsor who can really help you through the economic storms to come. That sponsor is oursilverlines.com. Do you feel like you're working harder for your money just to get by? You are not alone. The fluctuating economy, employment issues, and unexpected changes in life have left many families struggling over the past few years. Collecting gold and silver can help shield you against many of these challenges, but if you're like me many years ago, you don't know where or how to start. Our Silver Lines helps by connecting you with thousands of members who are learning the secrets to creating and protecting true wealth by collecting precious metals. Now, whether you just want to collect rare and unique coins or take advantage of the business opportunities this company provides, either way, they can help you learn to live an exceptional life. Visit oursilverlines.com to learn how you build a legacy for your future. Hey. Okay, now here is the irony, and a surprisingly pleasant one. The acquittal of Angela Davis played a role in sowing doubt in the mind of a Russian military pilot who heard about her case from a Zampolit during a period of cholera quarantine. Head scratch alert, you're all wondering, Zampo what? A Zampolit, literally a political deputy commander, delivered political lectures to all personnel in any military unit larger than a platoon in the Soviet armed forces. So this Zampolit declared that the Communist Party was terribly persecuted in the United States, begging the question of why the United States even allowed a party like that to operate. Then he dwelt on the case of Angela Davis. Well, this officer, hearing this Zampolit go on and on about that case, asked himself, and here I'm quoting from John Barron's biography of this man, "You mean they allowed communists to teach in their universities? Why did the dark forces let her go? Why didn't they just kill her?" Close quote. 4 years later, Lieutenant Viktor Ivanovich Belenko of the Soviet Army Air Forces would escape from Russia with his MiG-25 Foxbat, which he landed in Hakodate, Japan. In the meantime, Angela Davis faded into near obscurity because she never had the stuff from which cold-hearted and cold-blooded revolutionaries come. In the immortal words of the late Robert A. Heinlein, author of Starship Troopers, a revolutionist has to be willing to fight and die, or he's just a parlor pig. Well, that pretty much describes Angela Davis. Otherwise, there might have been 4 suspects dead outside that courthouse in Marin County, not just 3. But though she showed no willingness to fight and die, she did write many books expounding on morally destructive ideologies. Some even figured in the College Board Advanced Placement African American Studies course that Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida banned. And now you know why he banned it. Governor Glenn Youngkin of Virginia has promised to review that same course for possible violation of his earlier executive order forbidding the teaching of divisive concepts in Virginia schools. And now we come to the big to-do of last week. On February 21st, 2023, Angela Davis appeared on the program Finding Your Roots on PBS. The reportage from this comes from The Daily Wire, The Blaze, and Headline USA. As part of arranging to appear on that program, she submitted a genetic sample. DNA testing by the blot method of Edwin Southern is a common technique for ancestry tracing today. Mr. Gates then told her, live on the air, that she descended from William Brewster, Elder Brewster of a ship named Mayflower. Well, how about that? I have a link in the description to Henry Louis Gates' own tweet, embedding the segment showing her reaction. I'm telling you, she literally could not contain her shock. "I don't believe it," she said. "My ancestors didn't come across on the Mayflower." Mr. Gates repeated that yes, she did. And she said, "No, no, 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 no." And later she said, and I kid you not, "This is too much." But that was not all. She had another white ancestor on her mother's side, a Revolutionary War patriot. Not only that, but Stephen Darden, after mustering out of the Continental Army, moved to Georgia, bought a farm, and owned at least 6 slaves. She later said of this episode, and here I quote, "I always imagined my ancestors as the people who were enslaved. My mind and my heart are swirling with all of these contradictory emotions," unquote, Angela Davis. To anyone else, this would come only as a mild irony. Angela Davis actually avows that she finds this devastating, as well she might, considering her history, ancient and recent. Now, I reviewed that history for a reason, but not to relitigate the case of California versus Davis. A jury possibly nullified California's accessory to crime law, and jury nullification is a thing in California anyway. Just consider the case of California versus O.J. Simpson. Besides, I find her advocacy of destructive ideologies arguably more damaging even than Jackson killing the judge, although that comes close. Rather, I have this question for Angela Davis. How is that corruption of blood thing working out for you? You, who promote a corrosive ideology and once arguably were an accessory to murder, now find yourself descended from one of America's first colonists and from a Revolutionary War patriot. And we already know that this does not please you. Michael Young, also known as Wokal Distance on Twitter, left a 4-tweet thread on Twitter. I have links to 3 of the tweets, which is all you need. Here's what he said, quote, Angela Davis is a woke activist and academic who has argued that America was built on slavery by racist colonizers. Yet her ancestors came to America on the Mayflower. This isn't just a cheap dunk. The point is that even the most hardened and radical woke activists have a history that is far more complicated than their own ideology allows for. Davis is, by her own standard, a colonizer. And by her own standard, an oppressed minority. The easy cheap shot is to ask, does she need to pay reparations to herself? The important insight is that Angela Davis' own life is proof that the history of Americans does not fit into the intersectional categories of race and gender that woke activists want to sort people into. Wokeness wants to divide us into oppressor and oppressed according to our ancestry or skin color or other qualities. But Angela Davis' own life shows that the world is far too complicated for that, and none of our bloodlines are exempt from the sins of history. Close quote. That thread got a lot of sarcastic reaction. I won't repeat it here. Let it suffice that it misses the point. Angela Davis set great store by the purity of her oppressed pedigree. Finding out that her actual ancestry throws a large wooden shoe into her self-view, which she in fact acknowledges and bemoans. Links in the description of the article to Angela Davis' wanted poster, to Henry Louis Gates' tweet with video of him interviewing Davis, to the Wokal Distance thread, to my Declarations of Truth Twitter account, and to Conservative News and Views. I've also left links to the awesome CNAV Store and to oursilverlions.com, as I also mentioned. You know already about how to like a video, turn on notifications, and leave a tip. On the end screen, I'm going to leave a subscribe link to my channel and links to videos from other influencers who have already remarked on the supreme irony that could be the means by which Angela Davis destroys herself. This is Terry A. Hurlbut delivering another declaration of truth and reminding you to let the truth set you free.